A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. On my video about Kawthar, I already explained why our hands should be interlaced during Salah according to the Quran, as it is symbolic of attacking the shaitan within us with a spiritual weapon, or in other words, exorcism. However, at that time, I didn't yet know what this spiritual weapon was, and I wrongly assumed that it is imaginary. This is a mistake that many people make, and I have actually criticized others for it, and that is that people often confuse the spiritual for the imaginary. I make this mistake myself due to the fact that I didn't yet know what this spiritual weapon was. What the spiritual weapon that the surah was referring to was to do vanhar or exorcism with, as it is not mentioned in the entire surah. However, we have another surah in the Quran that is literally known as the surah of iron or hadid. In this surah, there is an ayah specifically about iron. If we read it carefully, we find that it has clearly been misinterpreted by the books of tafsir. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Indeed, we sent our messengers with clear proofs, and with them we sent down the book and the balance so that people may administer justice. And we sent down iron. In it is great might and benefits for humanity, and so that Allah may experience knowing who will help him, it meaning Allah, and its messengers in the unseen or ghaib. Surely Allah is powerful, mighty. The assumption here is that here Allah is referring to war. In other words, the use of iron as a weapon to make swords, daggers, etc. to be used for jihad in the battlefield. However, notice that it says the purpose of iron is to help Allah in the unseen or ghaib, not in the physical world. This clearly shows that iron is a spiritual weapon to be used as a tool for exorcism. Of course, iron has many other uses too, but this ayah here is clearly referring to spiritual warfare rather than physical warfare. As it says in a hadith that the inner jihad is greater than the outer or physical jihad. So when we combine this with the other ayah that mentions wanhar or nahr, or stabbing Satan, we come to the conclusion that this actually is supposed to be done using iron. It is also interesting that, as we shall see on future videos inshallah, the Kabbalist Jews believe that the evil path or klipaf is in the neck. However, unlike us, they believe that they must embrace the evil and combine good with evil, which is why they altered their own salah and even ours, and gave us all these fake choices which are all rooted in Judaism, such as placing the hands on the flanks, which the Shias, Malikis and Khawarij do, and placing the right hand over the left, which symbolizes placing Mikael over Jibrail, whom they hate. And this is done by the Shafis, the Hanbalis, the Salafis, and the Hanafis as well. So unlike the Kabbalists, we attack the evil chakra or klipa by touching our throat with iron. Of course, it is very important to remember that we are spiritually stabbing Satan and not ourselves. So we simply need to touch our throat with iron without hitting or harming ourselves, which is why I recommend that we do this by wearing an iron ring which has no sharpness in it. And so just by touching our throats with the iron, we are cutting off the Satans in the spiritual or astral realms from our own souls. And this is the meaning of Abtar. Of course, the physical way of fighting Satan, as I said before, is to boil gold and silver, preferably in a copper or iron container, and then drink it. But Salah is spiritual exorcism. And it's interesting that I discovered the gold and silver method right after I corrected my Salah. So in other words, when I was spiritually fully exorcised, my mind was opened and I learned about the gold and silver method by studying another ayah in the Quran which talks about food and precious metals together next to each other. And so I came to the conclusion that precious metals are supposed to be used in cookware. But that's a topic for another video. Inshallah, I will explain it more on the candle wax series. Anyway, this is why we have a hadith that actually states that performing salah with a ring is 70 times better than doing it without a ring. Many Abbasid scholars rejected this hadith because they thought it means that people who own rings will receive more rewards from Allah than poor people who can't afford one. But that's not what it actually means. What it means is that the iron ring will make the exorcism 70 times more effective. So imagine, instead of stabbing the shayateen once, you are stabbing them 70 times in each salah, because iron is sacred. In fact, the Quran uses the same term for iron as it does for the Quran itself. It says we have revealed iron, just as it says that we have revealed the book. So iron isn't just another creation, but is sacred, just as the Quran and the previous scriptures are sacred. That's how important iron is in our religion. It doesn't mean that you get more reward. This is the problem with the Sufi Shia mentality of tricking God into giving us more rewards. Iron makes the salah more effective because it is more practical, just as you would be healthier if you eat better quality food. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are a better person than a poor guy who can't afford good food, but you would benefit more from it regardless, because it's more practical. It's more useful. Also, iron is very cheap. Even today, when iron is rare and difficult to find, it is still relatively cheap and affordable when you do find something made of iron. So almost anyone can afford it. Of course, since the Quran doesn't tell us to wear an iron ring, the iron doesn't have to be a ring. You simply need to hold something made of iron in your hands and touch your neck with it. The ring is simply sunnah because it is more convenient. Initially, I myself actually used a very old iron can opener and an antique pair of scissors which was made of iron. Of course, I used the other side of the scissors, not the sharp side, to touch my neck. If you have an iron ring, I recommend wearing it on the forefinger because it touches your neck when you're doing the nahr movement. Now you might say, but there are ahadith that forbid the wearing of iron rings. Yes, in both Sunni and Shia books, there is hadith against iron. But we have already proven that iron is sacred according to the Quran, so we reject all such narrations. Here are a few examples. Majlisi, the very famous Shia scholar, narrated that Allah does not cleanse the hand which has an iron ring on it. And he also narrated that the Prophet specifically forbade wearing an iron ring during Salah. In fact, there are many narrations in Shia books that specifically state that it is forbidden to wear an iron ring in Salah. The fact that these narrations specifically mention Salah is very interesting, as it clearly exposes a satanic agenda, and they also claim that it's impure, that iron is impure, even though the Quran implies that it is very sacred. Imam Sadiq said, iron is the clothes of the people of hell, and Allah has made it the clothes of jinn and satans in this world. Therefore, it is haram for Muslims to wear them during Salah. However, there are also contradictory narrations in Shia's own books that say the opposite. They even say that iron scares away the evil jinn and evil humans and protects from Satan. And these narrations agree with what the Quran says or implies regarding iron. For example, it is narrated in enshauAllauh Shara'a, Imam Ali wore 4 types of rings: Yaqut, Firuzeh, Chinese iron, and Aqiq. Imam Sadiq said, I would like every believer to wear these 5 rings: Aqiq to protect from poverty, Firuzeh to help his work, Yaqut to protect from depression, iron to protect from enemies, and the rands to make matters easier. And this is from Wasa'il Shia. And yet there is another narration in the Shia book Tabrasi, which says Ali had 4 rings. One of them had a Chinese iron on it to give him strength, but he forbade the Shia from wearing iron. You see, I believe that this narration was fabricated because at that time when this book was written, or this narration was invented, the people knew that Ali used to wear an iron ring. And we already saw this in the previous narration, that Ali actually used to wear an iron ring. So people knew about this. So someone came up with the idea that, hey, iron rings are forbidden. One of the munafiqeen, one of the Aliya al-Shaytan, one of the Satanists, said that iron is forbidden. And people said, hey, you're a liar. Ali used to wear an iron ring. So he changed his narration and said, yeah, even though Ali wore an iron ring, he told his followers not to wear one. But we can clearly see in the other narration, it actually says, I would like every believer to wear these rings. And one of them is an iron ring. Okay, so we know that that wasn't the reason. It's not like the Imams wore iron rings and they said our followers shouldn't wear iron rings. No, in the other narration it says that the Imams told their followers to wear them too. They said that every believer, every mu'min is supposed to wear these rings. They recommend them to wear these rings. So we can see a clear contradiction here, and we can clearly see the satanic agenda at a time when people still knew the truth. So they had to say that, okay, Ali wore an iron ring, but we're not supposed to wear it. Now here are some of the narrations in Sunni books that forbid the wearing of iron. Muhammad ibn Abdullah reported that a man came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, wearing a gold signet ring on his finger. The Prophet, may Allah bless him, turned away from him. When the man saw his dislike of the gold, he threw the ring away. He made an iron ring and wore that. He came to the Prophet, may Allah bless him, and who said, this is even worse. This is the ornament of the people of the fire. The man went away, threw it off, and put on a silver ring, and the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, did not say anything about it. So you see, this narration is saying that gold rings and iron rings are both forbidden. Now I've already explained on other videos why gold is not forbidden. But I don't want to get into that topic here, but it contradicts the Quran. Gold being forbidden contradicts the Quran. But we see that it says that iron is also forbidden according to this narration, even though the Quran tells us that it is sacred. Now we know such narrations are definitely lies because it is also narrated in Hakim and Mustadrak al-Hakim and Tabarani that the Prophet, peace be upon him, married a man to a woman for a dowry of an iron ring. So the Prophet actually used an iron ring as a dowry for marriage between a man and a woman, and yet we are told that it's forbidden. But here is the clearest proof that the iron is not forbidden, and we can clearly see a contradiction here. In Sunan Abu Dawud, which is one of the most authentic hadith books, is generally considered to be the third most authentic after Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. It says the signet ring of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was of iron polished with silver. So it actually says that the Prophet himself wore an iron ring. So is it forbidden, or did the Prophet himself wear it? We see the same contradiction in Sunni books as we see in the Shia books. Some narrations say that it's forbidden or imply that it's forbidden, and other narrations say that the Prophet himself or the Imams themselves used to wear it. And not only did they wear it, we see that the Prophet married a man to a woman for with a dowry of an iron ring. So that means the dowry is given by the husband to the wife. So the ring didn't belong to the Prophet. So in case someone says that only the Prophet wore the iron ring, but we're not allowed to wear it. No. He said he gave the ring as dowry to the man's wife. So this goes to show that the Prophet actually wore an iron ring, which makes it sunnah, which makes it part of a religion to wear an iron ring. It's actually very important. It's a very sacred thing. Now, you know what's interesting? Even though this narration is in Sunan Abu Dawud, which is one of the most authentic narrations, today, when this book is published in Saudi Arabia, in the commentary of this hadith, they say this is a weak hadith. This is a za'if hadith, according to the Saudi sheikhs. They say this is a false hadith. You have to reject it, ignore this hadith. Now here's the agenda to slowly get rid of this sunnah. Just like in the Shia books, we saw that there was an agenda to slowly get rid of the iron ring by saying that, okay, the Imams wore it, but we're not supposed to wear it. And there are also other narrations in the Shia books where it says that it is better not to wear it. So they did it slowly. Like first there were narrations that saying you have to wear the iron ring, it's good to wear it. And then you had narrations that said it's better not to wear it, try to avoid it. And then we got narrations that say no, it's absolutely forbidden and it's satanic, and if you wear it, you're basically a devil. You see? And likewise, in the Sunni book, there's a narration in Mishkat al-Masabih which says that Nafi said that when Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu sat during the prayer, he placed his hands on his knees, pointing with his finger, and gave his whole attention to it. He then said that God's messenger had said it has a more severe effect on the devil than iron, meaning the forefinger. Now, you might say that, well, this narration actually proves your point that iron is good to be used against Satan. Yeah, apparently that's the case. But no, this narration was invented to slowly alter the Salah. You see, before they invented all those other narrations that were completely against the iron ring, they were trying to alter the Salah. Notice it says that if you raise your finger, it is more effective than wearing an iron ring. So it is saying that you have to do this ritual from now on. Stop wearing an iron ring. It's good, you can wear it, but raise your finger, it's more effective. Now what's interesting about raising your finger is that it's nowhere in the Quran. And as I explained on part 1, we're supposed to take our Salah completely from the Quran. So raising your finger during the Salah, when they put their hands on their thighs and they raise their finger, how do you do it? That's actually a bid'ah. That's an innovation. You're not supposed to raise your finger. And this narration was fabricated at that time when people knew about the iron ring, and someone was coming up and inventing a hadith saying that, what's even better than wearing an iron ring? Just raising your finger. That's even more effective, so you don't need to wear it. So they weren't saying that it's forbidden yet. They were just saying that you don't have to wear an iron ring. You can just raise your finger. It's better than iron. But then later they started saying that no, iron is just completely bad and satanic and haram and forbidden. You see? So this narration is fabricated because the Quran never tells us to raise our finger when we have our hands on our thighs, during Salah. That whole ritual is completely made up. And there are many contradictions about it as well. Many of the mazahib, they argue with each other over how to move their finger when it's on their thigh during the Salah. But it's completely false. Just wear an iron ring and touch your throat with the iron ring during Salah, and you're supposed to touch the circular part of your throat, the part of your throat that connects to your chest, the part between your chest and your throat. Okay, so that area is called the nahr. So that's the softest part of your neck. That's where the iron is supposed to touch, and just touch it. Don't hit it. And some people watch my original video about Salah and they think that I was hitting my chest. No, I wasn't hitting it. The sound was my finger coming on, hitting my chest bones, because I was very skinny. So that's why you're hearing a knocking noise. That's just my finger touching my chest. I wasn't hitting my neck. Okay? And it's very dangerous to hit your neck, so don't hit yourself. Don't imitate the Shia's ritual of Ashura. Don't be hitting yourself. Just touch the iron ring on your finger to your throat, or hold a piece of iron and touch your throat with it. Don't do any damage to your throat or to your body. Don't do anything like that. Now what's interesting is that I actually had problems with my throat a few years ago, and as soon as right after I started doing this, my throat actually got better, which is very interesting. I had a problem with my throat for many years, but after I did this, my throat actually improved. And I don't hit anything. I don't hit my throat at all. Remember, just touch it with. It is very important. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is very, very important, because some people actually write comments and say things like that. No, just touch your throat with the iron ring. That's it, softly, and make sure that it's not sharp.